Shalom, Mishpachah, Kahala Yahweh, Barak Hashem Yahweh Shah, Wa Sawalam Ya Yakab, Wa Barakatam, Babaka Tawab, and Ishmael Shah. So today I just want to get into a quick study, take it back to somewhat basics on the importance of understanding the dynamics of marriage and relationships and how the Most High ordained it in this day and age, because that's something that, people have a tendency to forget the most, especially when you're engaging in potential relations with someone of the opposite sex. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and get into this. Ishmael Shah, let's do the works. So, I have my precepts here. Let me bring them up. And we're going to do this in order for now of the Bible, the scriptures. And I'm going to start with Genesis chapter 3 and verse 14. And it reads, And the Most High said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, beguiling Eve, that is, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. And sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. So we're seeing here that he's issuing, his judgment upon everyone for their lack of obedience. The serpent has his lot in life. The woman is made to serve her husband, and through child rearing and being the weaker vessel. And he says unto Adam, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. So we see that before this happened, the ground was blessed. It said that dew, instead of rain coming from the clouds, it came up from the ground. And, the ground was blessed. You would never hear about the ground catching a blaze or, anything like that, because the dew came up as opposed to coming from up and coming down, So, ground was extremely blessed, but he cursed it and made us to have to labor for our lot in life. That's man's duty. And second commandment after we broke the first one, which was, the Torah in essence, don't eat from that tree. And we disobeyed that commandment. So now we have to deal with more. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it was thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. So we see there that, In essence, we defied the first commandment and we're given even more. We defied those commandments and we're given even more later. But let's keep moving through these precepts here. 1 second. All right. Let's go to Genesis 24 and 58. And we're going to see here the significance of this scripture is letting us know how marriage covenant is sealed in the Most High's eyes. Basically, when two agree to marry and then they have intercourse, in essence, the marriage is sealed. We're going to see that in this story of Rebekah and Isaac. And it reads in Genesis 24 and 58. So, we'll give some context. Abraham's, servant after, everything that he looked to transpire for as a sign for himself transpired, he presented to Rebekah's family like, look, I was sent out here from my master looking for a wife for his son. I thought to myself, and the Most High showed me that if a woman came along and did thus and thus, that would be the one that I'm looking for. And this happened with your daughter. And so, they call her forward, and it says in 58, and they called Rebekah and said unto her, would thou go with this man? Do you agree to what he's proposing, basically? And she said, I will go. So in essence, in that moment, she agreed to marry him, Isaac, that is. And they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant, and his men, and they blessed Rebekah, and said unto her, thou art our sister, be thou the mother of thousands of millions, and let thy seed possess the gate of those which hate them. And Rebekah arose, and her damsels, and they rode upon the camels, and followed the man, and the servant took Rebekah, and went his way. And Isaac came from the way of the well Lahairoi, for he dwelt in the south country. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field at the eventide, and he lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, the camels were coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she lighted off of her camel. For she had said unto the servant, what man is that walketh in the field to meet us? And the servant had said, it is my master. Therefore she took a veil and covered herself. Basically, that's some kind of custom, I guess, like you wear, a bride wears a veil over her face. That custom still hasn't died after all these years. How your bride, when you're at a wedding, would veil herself. And so then it says, and the servant told Isaac all things that he had done. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So obviously, the only thing that happened there is they did the do, and then they became husband and wife. He clave to her, she clave to him, and they started a household together. In fact, they were together for 20 whole years before doing the do and all of that, having, whatever kind of fun they were doing, before they actually had given birth to the twins, Esau and Jacob. So, says Isaac was 40, about 20 years older than her. Isaac was 40, he was 60 when they finally gave birth to him. So, anywho, let's keep going. Let's see. Okay, Exodus. We're going to get into some of the scriptures that govern marriage now. This is Exodus 22 and 16 through 17. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. And if her father, and this is important. A woman should always, and I know this is hard to do in this day and age where men are like predators and women are kind of unruly too, but a woman should always have some sort of a head. If she don't know her father, don't have a relationship with him, an uncle, a big brother, somebody, a pastor at church, a mentor of some sort, who's married, probably, and is trustworthy, whose wife mentors this woman, not him, but so when this woman is looking to get married, somebody who can help protect her interest in the marriage agreement, because in Israel there's always an agreement in marriage covenant. It's just, we don't just come together and say we're gonna do it on a whim and fly this thing off the at our own will or wing it. No, we got to have a covenant established before we even come into this thing. So, if a man entice a maid or a young woman that is not betrothed, meaning that she's not married, and he basically convinces her or whatever, and they have sex, he must endow her to be his wife. Now, if her father or head at the time, because once she gets married, her husband will become her head, but whoever's heading this woman at the time, her father, uncle, brother, whatever, if they refuse to give her unto him, or say she's of an age where she can decide for herself, and this is where it gets kind of tricky. This is why when we're grown adults, it's not wise to have sex before marriage, and I had to learn this the hard way, but this is where things get messy, because a woman could be deceitful and say, I just want to sleep with him, so I'm gonna sleep with him, get the money, convince him to give me the dowry or whatever he would have to pay, and then tell him to get the hell on, or whatever. But this is mainly for younger women who are coerced, or at least a woman who's still under her family's care, because the idea is she's bringing some kind of value to her family's household. She's helping around the house, she's cleaning up, maybe she's paying some bills, helping with some bills while she's working, something, and so if her family refuse, to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins, which, the the value of silver is 50 shekels of silver, which a shekel is about 12 and a half, roughly to 13 on average grams of silver, which right now 50 of those is worth about $1,400. So you'd have to cough up $1,400, and that's in today's money, just like a while ago I checked and it was like way more, but like it's sad because we got sisters running around talking about just give me $40. That's like how far low we've become. But anyway, this is why, it's a shame for a father to have a daughter who is a whore. Or it's a shame for a father, or anything like that, like you're not allowed to whore your daughter out and say, well, we need some dowry money. Go and sleep with such and such a son, and so we can hustle some money out. No, we're not pimping out little young girls. That's preposterous. So, let's see, Leviticus 21:1, and it reads, "And the Most High spoke unto Moses, saying, Speak." This is the parameters for a minister's wife, or who a minister can marry. "And the Most High said unto Moses, Speak unto the priests, the sons of Aaron, and say unto them, There shall none be defiled for the dead among his people." Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Hold on. I need to scoot up. Sorry. Okay, Leviticus 21:7. Sorry about that. "They shall not take a wife that is a whore or profane, neither shall they take a woman put away from her husband, for he is holy unto his Yahweh power. Thou shalt sanctify him therefore, for he offereth the bread of thy God. He shall be holy unto thee, for I Yahweh which sanctify you am holy. And the daughter of any priest, if she profane herself by playing the whore, she profaneth her father, she shall be burnt with fire." Okay. And then, let's see, let's keep going. Okay, this is Deuteronomy 22:23, and it reads, "If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto an husband, and a man find her in the city, and lie with her, then you shall bring them both out into the gate of that city, and you shall stone them with stones, that they die. The damsel, because she cried not," and we see this in the book of Susanna as well, "and being in the city, and the man, because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife, so thou shalt put away evil from among you. But if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her, and lie with her, then the man only that lie with her shall die." Okay. But if unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing, there is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man rises against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was none to save her. Now 22:28, "If a man find the damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed," let's say it's all the same circumstances, "and lay hold on her, and lie with her, and they be found, Then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. Neither shall they take for their wives a widow, nor her that is put away, but they shall take maidens of the seed. Oh, sorry, that's something else. So this is mainly like force, intercourse. But even like if you entice her, and you, like it said in the previous scripture, it would appear as though, let me go back to that one. That was, so it's the same rules. The first one in Exodus is if you entice her, basically convince her, maybe she wants to do it too, but being the man, you have the greater responsibility. So that's Exodus 22 and 16 and 17, so that's why you would have to pay her family for, taking her virtue. You got to keep in mind, this is in a world where virtues and values were important. We've kind of fell so far from that. It's kind of, the lines are blurred, and that's why we need to be re-educated on these things. So either way, the second one in Leviticus was if he forces himself on her, which it's the same similar. Well, let me go back to the Exodus one real quick. Read there. Yeah. So either way, her family has the right to refuse. And the idea is, like, in essence, back then they valued purity and virginity. The least amount of times a woman was touched by a man, the more valuable and the greater chance that she would be married and have children it was. So, that's just basically how it worked. So, let's keep going. This is the new priesthood of the new covenant. This is Ezekiel chapter 44. And it's talking about the sons of Zadok, the Levitical priesthood. Basically the Melchizedek order, though, because we know that is the new covenant priesthood. So it says, this is Ezekiel 44 and 22. Neither shall they take for their wives a widow, nor her that is put away, but they shall take maidens of the seed of the house of Israel, or a widow that had a priest before. And they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and profane, and cause them to discern between the unclean and the clean. So, that's basically the requirement for a priest under the order of Melchizedek. Can't just be marrying any woman, Let's see. Let's go back. I just had Ezekiel. Let's get into some of Yahweh Shai's teachings on this matter. Let's see. Let's go start Malachi 2:16. For Yahweh, the power of Israel, saith, He hateth putting away, for one covereth violence with his garment, saith Yahweh of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit that you deal not treacherously. Matthew 5:32. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, so if she sleeps around on you while you're married, betrothed, or anything, if you put her away for any reason besides that, then you cause her to commit adultery by marrying another man, potentially, if she marries another man, and whosoever shall marry her that is divorced committeth adultery. So think of fornication as sex with a person. Well, I mean, for a married person. Now, fornication is any kind of lewd sexual activity, including having sex with a married person or a married person having sex outside of their marriage. Now, adultery is the act of basically an invalid marriage. When two people come together to get married and the Most High doesn't ordain it, because it's sin. Like in this manner where it says, whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, because she's been put away for committing fornication. So who marries that woman commits adultery. So basically, a woman who cheats on her husband can never marry again. She's still committed to her husband until he dies. That's cold game. And he can put her away and go and marry whoever. This is how wrong we have it in this day and age. And Matthew 19:9. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. And whoso marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery. So if you put away your wife, now you can only cleave to one wife. If you put her away and go and marry another one, you have committed adultery. It's marriage invalidity. Unless she commits fornication against you, just think about it like this, in the simple terms. This is why the Most High is raining down upon polygamy right now. Unless your wife commits adultery against you, you cannot find a second wife. And if she commits adultery, you cannot go back to her. You can only go and get another wife. That's a blessing enough. I don't know why these brothers feel like they need to have multiple women. From these rules in this day and age, I guarantee most men of God will marry on more than once. Just because of these commandments and how far off people are nowadays and how rebellious women are nowadays. Let's just be honest. Everybody's rebellious, Let's see. Let's see. What else? Oh, this is another one I forgot to add in here. This is the book of Mark, which basically tells us that a woman can never divorce. A woman can't divorce her husband. She can leave him, like say he's mistreating her. She can, separate from him. But if, and pray for God to work on him or whatever, but this is why, in a righteous world, a woman wouldn't really have to worry about an abusive husband or, in Israel, there was no such thing. Abusive husband would get stoned to death. The type of women that got beat were like Jezebel types or oppressors, the oppressor. The women of the oppressor are the enemy, not nobody's wife of Israel. You know what I'm saying? Like, so this is it Mark 10? Yeah, Mark 10 and 11. And it says, and he saith unto them, whosoever shall put away his wife and marry another committeth adultery against her. Now keep in mind, that's as long as she hasn't committed adultery, fornication. And in verse 12, and if a woman shall put away her husband for any reason and be married to another, it doesn't specify, for if he commits adultery or whatever. She committeth adultery. So a woman, because they're the weaker vessel, have no power to end a marriage. Only a man can put away his wife. And that's only if she's been found to be unclean. Defiled is what the Bible calls it. And, I've been going now for over a half hour. I want to make this video easy to upload, so I'm going to end this one right here, and we'll come back with a part 2 in just a while. All right, Shalom to the Mashbaka, Kahala Yahweh, Barak Hashem Yahweh Shah, wa Sawalam Ya Yakab, wa Barakatam, and Ishamai Shah, Bacham Palau, Chai Kadash Akkad. 1.